Alright guys, so how we doing today? So today we're working on this BMW that we worked last week, and we changed the battery on it. The battery was old and the car died. So we changed it out. The car set over the weekend, it died again. That's a bit new battery, it has an H8 AMG battery on it. So it's a big battery. Now, for this customer, it's just one thing after another. So BMW is like that. So it just happened that she's having all these issues at the same time. But before I even try to do a drain setting checkout on the battery, where you disconnect the positive and you put the 10, let's see if you can hear me, the 10 load between the battery cable and the battery, and then you wait for the car to die out, to go to sleep, and then you start checking to see which fuse is the one that is draining the battery. And then when you take it and you can see change on the amperage, then you know that there's something wrong in that system. So before we do that, I want to jump ahead to the alternator, because the alternator is the one that charges the battery. Now, what you're going to do is you are going to unhook the battery. Okay, why? Because you're going to have to take the positive cable that comes from the battery to the alternator. Now, this BMW is a 2013 328. We got the alternator here. The nut is there, and it's a 13 millimeter. We're going to take the intake just for the sake of more space and room. It has two bolts, one here, one here. They're 10. It has the sensor, okay, with a clip on it. Treat it very nicely, that way it doesn't break. And you got the 8 or flathead screwdriver to remove the intake. Over here in the front, if you can see, or yeah, you can see it. Over here in the front is the tunnel, okay, for the intake. It's gonna have two Torx head, one there, one here, two little clips right there and there. You're gonna take those out. That way you have room. Now, what we're gonna test is what kind of load we get on this system. Now, on the dials on the alternator. Why? The dials are supposed to charge the battery, which if you have good charge on the battery, the alternator is charging, but it's not supposed to send the electricity back to the alternator. When that happens, it's draining out the battery. Now, on one setting, you're supposed to get anywhere from 0.500 to 0.800. That's normal setting, that's okay. When you invert the wires, which I'm gonna explain, when you invert the wire to test it out, you're supposed to get absolutely nothing, okay? So, let me try this real quick, make sure that I have it on the right settings. Okay, there we go. Okay, so whenever you get a multimeter, you're gonna go into this setting here, okay? You can see that right there. You know, make sure that you have the dial setting. So on this one, when I change it, goes to auto, supposed to do automatic, but I want to go in there, okay? Now, I'm going to try to put this so you guys can see the change. See if I can put it somewhere. That way you can see it. Okay, so you can see that OL or 0L, whatever. So we're going to try first the black on the post and the red on the frame. Okay, so you can pick that up. That's a 0.505. So again, it needs to be from 500 to 800 range. So that's good. Now, if we invert, we shouldn't read anything, okay? But we are reading a 2.9 volt drainage. That means that the alternator, the dials inside, that are communicated to ground, and it's changed. That, you know, it's dying out the battery, draining it out. So 505, it could be 600, it could be 700, it doesn't matter. Up to 800, 800 to 500 range. That's a good alternator. But when you switch it over, okay, it shouldn't read anything. And there it reads 2900, somewhere in there, or 2.9. Okay. Now we're gonna go ahead, so you can see that's a bad alternator. Okay. I'm gonna test it on my truck, on my work truck, that I just put that alternator, which is a new alternator. I want to test it out so that you can see the difference. Okay. Let me set you guys up. Be right back. All right, guys. So now we're back to my work truck. Okay. Now this right here is a positive cable out of the alternator, which I put it right because I didn't disconnect my battery, just so I don't have any power going to the alternator. Now, if you can still see the OL, you can still see the OL. Now I'm going to test it out. Okay, the red on the post and the black on the chassis of the alternator, there's nothing. It's reading absolutely nothing. That's a good alternator. When we flip it over, okay, that's when we should read anywhere from 500 to 800 range. This one is 681. The other one is reading 500, 505, somewhere in there. So when we're scratching, that's what we're reading. But when we flip it over, we should read absolutely nothing. Nothing. The dial should not be making any contact with the body or frame or whatever you want to call the alternator, so it wouldn't drain the battery. So good alternator. See, the cables here, doesn't matter. In some or different dial meters, I don't know if people put the wires backwards, reverse, or they don't put it in the right place or whatever. So it doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter which color you're holding where. The only thing that matters is that you read on one side anywhere from 5 to 800, and when you switch the cables over, you should read nothing. If when you switch you read something, then that's a bad alternator that is draining out your battery. It might still be charging, you may not be getting, you know, a dead battery because of it, so it must still be charging the system. But when the system is down, when the actual car is staying steady, not driving it for a few hours at a time, then that alternator, the dials on it are bad. And what it's doing is it's making the alternator drain the system. And that's a bad alternator. Okay, so again, don't worry about the color of the wires. Just make sure that when you test it out of the system, you flip the wires over and you should not get any reading. Okay, on one side should be 0, on the other side should be reading anywhere from 500 to 800. Alright guys, so that's just a little quick tip on how to test the alternator before going and checking all your fuses and the loads and who is who and how bad of a system. Because remember, these cars that have alarm system, which when they wire them, they're not properly wired, they drain the battery. But if you use the car day in, day out, it doesn't drain the battery as often. You really can't tell. But when the system starts draining out enough to actually start draining the battery from one day to the other, or something where it starts bugging you, you know that if we're going to all the fuse boxes and trying to find out who is who, just go straight to the alternator. Give it a shot. I mean, you disconnect the battery if you're not comfortable, confident enough. That way you don't make any mistakes of you know, sparking or arcing or burning fuses that you don't want to burn and later you have to track down. Disconnect the battery, go to your alternator, find the terminal, okay, disconnect it, put a rag on it, put it aside. Once you put it aside, do that test. Test dials. Once you test the dials, you'll find out if the alternator is good or not. If it's good, it's going to mark one way 0, nothing's going to change. And the other way is going to mark anywhere from 500 to 800. If when you switch it, it starts reading, that's drainage. That's drainage from the cables coming straight from the battery. Now, obviously, the cable is not hooked up. The whole idea is for you to don't have any charge from the battery. So the cable is not hooked up. But that means that the dial inside the alternator is grinding out. That's why you're getting reading. Through the dials, whatever, you're getting reading when you shouldn't. So that's a bad alternator, which is draining out your battery. All right. So, like always, guys, share, like, subscribe. Help me help you. I'm super stoked and excited that the channel is actually growing. We got a little over 2K now of following. You know, I mean, I wish I could have 1,000,000, 200,000, 100,000, you know. But I know it takes time. It takes time. And like I said, I try to help out as much as I can. If you guys have any questions, I try to answer, even though the videos has gone through a couple months or a year or two or whatever. I still go back and revise it and give you the answer that you're looking for. And some of the stuff I still remember. So some stuff it's harder to tell, or you know, I'm going blank. I mean, so many cars that I have to work through in a week or a day. And, you know, like today I did 3 cars already. So now I'm finding the issue on this one, and I still got to put together 2 other cars that I'm working on. So, but it gives you an idea of how to solve the issue. And again, questions I try to answer. I haven't gotten big enough to where I can't take my time or don't have the time to answer you guys. So while I can, and I still have the time to do it, you know, it might be a couple hours later or whatever, but I'll try to answer. But like always, guys, I am super excited that the channel is growing, that it's going somewhere, and actually helping you guys out. And eventually I'll get a shop. I'm still mobile. I haven't done any day-in blogs or day-by-day or how it is to be a mobile mechanic or that, because I really don't have the time to do all that. I barely have time to get on site, do the job. If I can record. If I can't, I can't. So, but the ones that I can, that I think that are helpful, I record them. Some of the stuff is repetitive. You know, same car or different cars, but almost the same concept. So I don't try to record the same stuff over and over. But here and there, I do learn a new trick or whatnot, and I'll record it, and that trick is gonna save somebody. I'm definitely sure. So like always, share, like, subscribe, help me help you, and I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.